keep a few things and you can ask or remind me of. ठीक है, no worries, चलो I'll fill. Mic testing. Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Both okay?
Okay. Great.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Fireside chat on the topic digital transformation in Latin America. Today, we will be discussing the current state and future potential of fintech industry in these regions, as well as the challenges and opportunities that come with it. My name is Som, and I'm the Digital Strategy Director at Koditas and the moderator of this Fireside chat. I have been working as a sales leader in the technology domains for over more than a decade, and I have deep understanding of the challenges and the opportunities in the regions like US, Europe, Asia, and emerging market. I'm excited to be moderating the discussion and facilitating a valuable conversation with our in-house expert. And joining us today is Shirish Bhatt, partner and director of Koditas. Shirish has over 15 years of experience in formulating risk mitigation strategies and is an expert in data analytics and data management. And thank you for being here and taking our time to speak with us today.
Thank you, Som. Thank you for introducing me and having me here on this chat.
Great. So, Shirish, we all know that the fintech landscape is changing worldwide. So, what do you think is the current and overall state of fintech in Latin America?
Okay, so before we start, right, we need to first understand what is the landscape, right? The overall landscape when we speak about fintech and also the region, which is Latin America, right? Which approximately covers around 30-ish odd countries, right? Looking at the landscape and the activity that's going on in the region, what we've seen is that there is a growing trend in terms of digital banking. There is a lot of activity going on in lending space. There is a lot of engagement that is happening at this point in time because there is a lot of adoption of the mobile apps and things being moved or the applications being moved to the mobile solutions, right? So you'll see a lot of user base is coming online, and there is a lot of activity that happens because of these digital applications that have become available to the people over there, right? As per our estimates, there is around 400 million odd user base that we anticipate being available, being online, using these digital products by 2025, okay, right? So that is what I've seen, or that's what our understanding around the space. When we speak about the fintech solutions, right? Like I mentioned, we have banking solutions that are being now built for a mass or large population and is made accessible through mobiles. We've got insurance, which is again being brought online and made accessible, made available to a large population. We've got lending platforms, which is again a very unique space, which allows people to have the right amount available in hand in order to do transactions, right? Or fulfill their needs, especially during the current downturn scenario, right? That's where it is something which we are seeing is growing at a larger pace.
So you believe mobile penetration plays a very important role because
definitely, yes,
400 million odd users,
yes,
and that's how the penetration is in the Latin
yes.
countries.
So that's the key factor, right? Because if you have the right accessibility, then you can build applications and make those available to the entire population, right? And that's where the mobile penetration plays a significant role.
Okay, sounds interesting. That's a very deep insight that you've given us. But then you mentioned about 30 odd countries in Latin America. Correct. Out of that, which country in Latin America do you think is making significant progress in fintech?
I think I'll go by the size and the scale at which we are seeing a lot of startups coming in, or the companies or corporates operating in a particular country. Brazil obviously being the largest in terms of the population strength, or having much more literacy in terms of the usage of applications, right? Has seen the maximum activity. Have, like, according to our data, it's more than 700 plus organizations or companies or startups which have mushroomed, and they have started building products for this massive scale audience. Second to that, I'd say Mexico, which is another large space where there is a lot of activity going on in the fintech area. More than 500 plus, I would say, organizations have grown and have got investments in that space where they're targeting the end consumer and are building solutions where they can utilize those solutions and do digital transactions, right? So those two countries, I would say, predominantly are growing at a really fast pace. In fact, Mexico, I would say, has achieved a projected target, which they had projected for 5 years within a single year in 2021 itself. So that is the speed and the scale at which Mexico is growing. Okay. Right? That's just the perspective, right? Similar to that, Brazil, like I mentioned, they've got the largest deal in the entire America itself, like both the Americas, right? 1.5 million or billion, in fact, for building the digital platform, right? Nubank, right? That is an organization which is based out of Brazil, and that's where it's a significant size and the scale of the deal itself, right? So that's where I think a lot of investment is also going in those two countries. Then again, we've got Colombia, Argentina, Chile, which are doing really well, and there are other areas also which are now slowly developing the overall landscape. Yeah. But I would say these few organizations or these few countries, in fact, are growing at a rapid pace.
Right. that's interesting. But mostly, I believe after Brazil, Mexico, and other countries, they have a lot of unbanked population.
Definitely, yes. So that unbanked population lies in other geographical regions also. But I would say in these larger countries itself, you will see a lot of population still which is untapped, and that's where these the companies or the startups within these countries itself are getting that unbanked population, and that's where they are seeing a significant growth.
Interesting. Okay. So, and what are the so you can help us with some examples for our viewers as to what specific transformation is happening in which fintech and having a particularly big impact. Like there are in fintech, there are a lot of transformations, there are a lot of subsections. Fintech is a big thing, right?
Correct.
So, but what are the specific things that you think? Which is
I think predominantly the first most that I would see, or what we are seeing now, or probably in the coming few years, is going to be the open banking infrastructure, right? Where uh, multiple financial organizations can expose their data via a secure framework, right, which is called open banking. It essentially allows you to aggregate information from various financial institutions. As a consumer, you can consume that information within a single platform, right? That is one of the interesting spaces which I would say would grow and will continue to grow in the coming years. In fact, countries like Mexico, right, they have in fact rolled out a law similar to what you would see in the UK, right, where they have made open banking as a law itself, which allows organization to extract or get information via secure APIs from these financial institutions and build products on top of that data for the customer, which can help the customer take informed decisions, probably track their expenses, track their spendings, and make more informed decisions, right? So that is one real space where I see a lot of activity and which will keep growing. The other areas that I feel where there is a lot of activity or startups like Belvo, Quanto, there is NuFi, which are startups which are growing in this space and would continue to grow. Other areas are lending, digital payments, right? Those are like they were present and these are growing based on how well the population is coming online. Right, so these few transformations are coming in, which is impacting the consumer behavior, and they are getting more and more digital solutions available to them, which help them in making those transactions at a faster pace and at a much more convenient time and place, actually.
exactly because I believe, like you mentioned, open banking. After UK, there are other countries as well which have started
Yes.
adopting it.
Yes.
It became more open to it. UK being a very conservative in data protection,
Correct.
still they have opened it, and
Yes.
Middle East opening it. Even US is in
Right.
for it. Yeah.
Correct. So I think, yeah, that is a very interesting space, especially fintech across the world, and that's the same pattern or trend that we are seeing or would observe in the coming future in the Latin America also.
Interesting, interesting. That would be giving a huge boost to the users as well
Sure.
as these startups, which could come up with new technologies.
Right.
And so, what kind of technology trends then would happen, and what would be the impact? Do you think?
So when I say technology trends, it essentially would heavily be dependent on what type of solutions or what type of problem that you're trying to solve, right? So you would typically see a lot of digital banking solutions coming online or made available to the end consumer, right? So when I say digital banking, it's like an overall digital bank available so that you do not need to actually have a physical banking infrastructure in place, right? So that would be one of those areas which will continue seeing growth. There are payment spaces because you will see a lot of boom coming in because of the entire banking system or the entire payment infrastructure being digitized. You would have payment systems being integrated with large-scale e-commerce platforms, overall deliveries, any platform where the consumer needs to make payments. You would see a lot of activity in that space. So that is again a trend that is quite visible and follows the pattern that we have seen worldwide, right? So it is going to follow the same pattern, I think, in the Latin America space itself. Peer-to-peer lending or the overall lending space itself, because of the current recession scenarios across the world, or there is a downturn in terms of the economy worldwide. Lending is one of the areas which is mushrooming or growing because there is crunch that is available, and this particular thing helps the consumers solve their problems for a short duration, right? So lending is another space where there is a lot of activity going on. Insurance, obviously, because at this point in time, again, people are having access to a lot of variety of policies and or variety of insurance frameworks, right? Whether it's health, whether it's motor, whether it's house. So there is a lot of activity that we have seen, and that's where again there is a growth trend that we are observing in terms of the insurance area, and then making those plans or that information available to the user on their fingertips, right? So that is growing. Other areas that I've seen trends growing is in terms of the robotic process automation and AI, right? Robotic process automation, because you're now having a lot of things which are digitized, right? The traditional paper-based stuff or the information that was stored on non-digital media, those are getting eliminated. Obviously, there was similar kind of adoption in various industries, and I'm not saying that it is something which is brand new, but there is a lot of adoption where a lot of processes which were done manually are now getting automated through robotic process automation, right? And then on top of that, AI is like the recent trend itself, the chat GPT itself has gone completely crazy, and AI will see a lot of such things coming into the space, right? Where you will see a lot of adoption in terms of variety of such solutions being built and baked into these kind of digital platforms.
Right. You're correct. I think there's a time when you build solutions, and then there's a time when you move into the complete automation part of it, and you want to scale it. So
Right.
that is where I believe you are trying to say that RPA and plays a very important role, or business automation plays a very important role.
In fact, since we touched upon RPA, right, I would just need to like bring up a stat, right? There is the growth at which RPA, like the CAGR, is at 35%, wherein the anticipated market size is around $1 billion itself by 2025. So that is the pace at which it is growing from 2021 to 2025 itself. So space, which is like very basic automation coming into, once the systems are much more digitized, you see a lot of such processes coming into picture. So I think RPA is picking up a significant pace along with the overall of data, wherein AI is going to be game-changing activity that in this consumer, their behavior, their activity. How can you deliver a better experience to them? What type of data can be leveraged to better address their problems, right? Better needs. So getting data is the key factor. Once you have the data, analyzing it in the best possible way. That's where AI comes into picture, machine learning models, or data science comes into picture, where it paints a different picture altogether for the overall consumer behavior and the patterns. And then you can build a lot of different solutions, right? It can be recommendation systems where you understand their activities, you understand their behavior, and build personalized journeys, build personalized solutions for them, right? Whether it's products for them. Yes. There is a lot of information that you will gather which will help you in fraud detection, because finance naturally will have to have some sort of a security in place, right, by default. And fraud detection systems play an important role in the overall fintech industry itself, right? So based on the data that you have, you can build very strong fraud detection systems to ensure that whatever transactions are happening are valid, right? You'll see a lot of loan processing also, like wherever you need intelligence, right? Loan processing, where you need to understand the behavior, the credit pattern, the way people are repaying their loans, right? Based on that, you would have your loan process or the loan approval process set up. So once you have enough data, that will help you automate and speed up the entire loan approval process itself. So that overall links to your consumer satisfaction, the consumer experience while you're interacting with the bank, right? So a bank or whichever industry you are catering to, right? That itself is a kind of a competitive edge that the organizations would gain who are trying to use data and AI to solve problems, right? So that again is something which I'm very positive about, and I think that is the trend that typically organizations across the world follow, right? Leveraging data to the maximum utilization, right? Having said that, probably risk mitigation, risk management is another area where you would see a lot of activity, because of data again being available, can be analyzed, can be crunched to understand where there is a gap, where there is a risk, where there is an investment which may go wrong in terms of bank, whether it's a lending platform, whatever it is, right? You will need to identify risks and mitigate those. So having data and AI in place, that would definitely help, right? There are other solutions that I can definitely think of where you can do a lot of activity using data, like marketing solutions, sales solutions, advertisements, which are specifically targeting a particular type of consumer base, right? Their preferences, their choices, and building products or offerings which more appealing to them, right? So again, sales would heavily benefit with the type of data that we are generating.
Interesting. That was very, very in-depth knowledge. But then there's one thing that I want to ask you, because you are a technology person, right? But then there is a notion which most of or more in more of the product companies we miss out, and because as a product acceptance or a user behavior, that is a UX part in any part in any
Correct.
product.
Right.
I think it plays a very important role.
Yeah, so those challenges would lie in any of the ventures or any of the digital transformation activities that you do, right? You would need the user to be educated enough. You would need the adoption to be in place, right? Wherein people understand the benefit or the value that particular system or that particular application or that particular tech product is going to help or bring to the table, right? So adoption or making people aware of the fact, solving for that challenge is going to be one of the key areas where people will invest. The ventures will be investing into those kind of problem statements while they are also building technology. Apart from that, I think the challenges that you're trying to point out, I would say, like, most of the challenges would lie in the space where, since it's a digital banking infrastructure or the fintech infrastructure, security being the primary area, right, where there will be significant investments that people would need to make. Probably there will be a variety of organizations or startups that would come into that space itself, where they have offerings where they're trying to protect this digital infrastructure as much as possible, right? Scalability is going to be the next factor because, like I mentioned, the space itself is quite active. The user base is completely growing and is at a rapid pace, right? You need to have infrastructure which can scale easily and can cater to a larger user base in the near future, right? Being agile, being able to react to the market signals, that is what something again we'll need to solve for, or the organizations who are targeting this kind of a market will need to solve for, right? Because again, the user behavior will keep changing as the user behavior or the users become more and more mature about the ecosystem, how the digital systems would work and how they would be benefiting them. So based on that, they will have more and more new demands, right? And the organizations need to be very agile in order to cater to that kind of a demand, right? Having said that, right, again, there are a few things that the organizations would need to solve, or again, those would be more from the infrastructure side or the regulatory frameworks that are in place, the governments who run the overall or set up this kind of a regulatory framework, right? That is something which still is growing and will need more and more attention as they try and support this digital infrastructure, right? Like, to give you some perspective or example, there are still countries where you may have a challenge or an issue with internet penetration itself, right? Where people are not having access to the internet, or probably certain places you may not have the right kind of electricity itself, right? So those kind of challenges would be there, but then based on how the governments or the organizations in that particular area or that particular country address those problems, that would help accelerate the pace at which these organizations are growing. And then the adoption would grow further.
That's right. That's right. That is very much important in terms of the adoption, how people take any kind of products, how they start utilizing it.
Right.
And that becomes very vital in terms of the adaptability.
Correct.
So, what do you think about the credit processing system in Latin America?
Most cases, I would say, because again, given across the world, right, where it is affecting the overall economy across the world, credit industry which is growing, in fact, because of the current situation, right? COVID had their own organizations which were growing at a faster pace. Post-COVID, there is a recession or this kind of an environment where things are a bit clogged. I would not say negative, but it's not moving at the faster pace that it was, which we desired, right? So lending systems are growing at a faster pace. Microfinance-based organizations who are making loans available to individuals, small businesses, those are mushrooming again and again. And then there is a variety of activity going on in the individual space itself, right? When it comes to platforms like e-commerce, they're typically offering solutions like buy now, pay later, which allows individuals with good credit history, with good payment behavior to get a benefit where they are allowed to utilize funds. These are like kind of short-term loans, right, that are available to them, which can be quickly repaid based once their situation is improving or they have EMI-based structure in place. So those are the areas where we are seeing good activity. Peer-to-peer lending, again, on a similar line, is growing at a rapid pace where there are a variety of organizations. One of those, Coditas, I think, which is based out of Brazil, is doing really well and is growing. So I think that is, again, a very interesting space where both digitization and also being able to transact at a rapid pace at a very accessible and a comfortable format or a convenient manner is helping the consumer pattern. It's basically transforming the consumer behavior, right? Overall, these products that we are talking or discussing about is essentially transforming the consumer behavior, and see a lot of adoption over a period of next 2 to 3 years, I think.
Interesting. That is also very interesting because I think there are, before this, you mentioned one more thing about challenges and opportunities.
Right.
So what do you think? Like, we spoke about the challenges, but then what are the opportunities, do you think? Do you think there is a lot of opportunities still?
Yeah, correct. So if you see opportunities, that there will be various opportunities, right? Because uh, you have a very young population, a very good population, which is, I would say, middle class, wanting to have convenience at hand, right? Believers in digitalization, believers in adopting modern technology, right? So you'll see a lot of challenges also, because you have to handle that kind of a consumer behavior's expectations at a very agile, rapid manner. And also within those regulatory frameworks that we spoke about, or being compliant to the organization's needs or the government needs, right? But at the same time, I see a lot of opportunity in the space where something like a cloud infrastructure, you would see a lot of investments in that space, right? A variety of organizations, the top cloud providers, are definitely investing in that particular region, and you will see a lot of adoption where you'll see organization or most of the applications being pushed towards the cloud. Again, because you'll have a lot of digital solutions available, you will see a lot of investments in data and the AI solutions, right? Because once you have information available, and making the most out of that information is going to be the next key thing, right? So I would say, because you have got that kind of a challenge and there is a good decent population who wants to come and overcome those challenges, there is a significant opportunity also. People who are able to solve such problems or get that kind of an adoption in place across, while building technology and solving for these kind of problems, especially in terms of the fintech area, where you do transactions on a day-to-day basis, right? So that is one space you will see a lot of activity. So that is a good decent opportunity to encash on, right? Whether you're a startup, whether you're an established organization itself, right? Like I mentioned, security, right? You definitely, there is a great opportunity for people who are building products, who are going to ensure that there is enough security in place, there is enough compliances in place, which can allow those kind of mechanisms or checks to be in place when information is being shared, when transactions are being done, right? So definite opportunity where organizations can build products around that security space itself, right? So I don't think there is I'd say a paucity of opportunity. Wherever you will have challenges, you will see opportunities, right? And that is typically how the overall worldwide audience grows, or the worldwide humanity itself grows, right? So overcoming challenges would help you get more and more opportunities.
Definitely. We have seen a lot of emerging markets
Yes,
across the globe coming up. So one of the important region is the Asian market.
definitely.
In the last 10 years, 15 years, it has changed a lot. I think LATAM is in the same phase right
Phase itself, yes.
and I see a lot of opportunities from you, hearing a lot of opportunities from you, like security, and we're talking about cloud, we're talking about RP, we're talking about AI, ML. So I'm seeing a lot of opportunities coming from rather than challenges.
Right.
So which is a positive point.
Right. So true. And in fact, since you brought up Asia as a point, right? I would say like 10, 15 years, I think this was probably exactly same state, I would say, where some of the upcoming countries or growing countries in Asia were at the cusp of digitization. And today we are seeing a booming sector here in Asia, right? And I would say it's almost on a similar lines is what I feel. And that's the reason I've got a really positive sentiment around this particular market itself, where I see a significant growth, and that's where I think there is a good, decent opportunity.
Right. So I think because you have spoken so much about the domain, especially fintech and BFSI, I think there is one last thing that we would all like to understand. Like from the legacy core banking systems, there also we are seeing a shift because you have been working in
Correct.
BFSI as far as
Yes.
you know. Yeah.
So So core banking itself, right? The first thing that we spoke about, right, where you have banking and you've got monoliths and large systems, right? You have got a lot of variety of inter system communication, and there was legacy applications that were built over a period of time to just have some sort of infrastructure which is not manual. That is getting digitized, right? Like we spoke about a few digital banks who do not have actual physical infrastructure. These are completely digital. The next phase is going to be again making the entire infrastructure more and more secure, right? That's where I've seen a lot of investments in blockchain and technologies which leverage blockchain in the overall core banking itself, right? So a couple of systems that I've spoken about are probably which I know about, like Thought Machine and their core and their digital payment systems itself. That itself is seeing a lot of adoption where people are trying to leverage their core banking solution because it is again massively scalable, so that the overall experience when the consumer interacts with this entire core is fabulous, right? So you'll see a lot of activity again in that space where whether it's Thought Machine or some other core banking solution, which is faster, secure, overall experience-wise is performant. That is something which we'll see a lot of investments going into.
Interesting. That was a good thoughts that you've given. I think this gives our viewers a lot of clarity as to what we are doing. But then, in specifically, if we talk about, because your T-shirt says that you have been branding Coditas. So, what specifically Koditas has done in BFSI?
So we've been working with a lot of financial institutions, a lot of banks across the globe. In fact, some of the top tier banks in the United States, some of the top tier banks in India. That's typically catering to the Asian markets, right? So we've been helping them modernize their overall infrastructure, modernize their application itself, right? So there is a lot of applications that are being built, a lot of systems that are being built in order to run the entire banking business. So we are helping a few of these large organizations modernize their entire banking infrastructure, bring it to a modern day technology stack, which is much more performant, can scale, can have a fabulous user experience itself, which makes the users utilize it more and more, right? There is a lot of solutions that we are building in space of like AI and machine learning and data solutions, where we are helping them accumulate massive scale data, whether it's transactional, whether it's user activity, whether it's behavior, whether it's non-transactional information around their overall credit structure or their overall persona itself, right? And then utilize that in building a variety of solutions for them at an individual level. So that is again something which we are helping these banks build. Again, there is a lot of activities or a lot of solutions that we are building, which is not targeted to the core banking, but overall support systems, right? There is a lot of solutions that we have built in contact center solutions, or we are building solutions where we are helping their sales and marketing team to run active campaigns, which is very, very structured and is very, very targeted and can get the right consumer to the platform. So those are the kind of solutions that we have built. Again, while we are building these solutions, these tech products, there is a lot of migration that is involved, where we are moving the legacy infrastructure, which is from on-premise to the cloud infrastructure, where again it can give them massive scale, massive elasticity in itself, right? Where they can change, configure, and make sure that the solution is scaling as per the consumer needs, right? So that is another area where we've been doing or solving a lot of problem statements.
Interesting. So I think we are running out of time. The discussion is becoming very interesting, and I think we could have discussed more about it, and our viewers could have seen more of what we have done or how the market is changing. But then, unfortunately, we'll have to call it a wrap. This was a very interesting discussion, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. But then, don't want to stop here. We can keep it open. We want to solve your complex problems, and if you want to know how Koditas can solve your complex problems, you can just drop an email to fireside@koditas.com. It's fireside@koditas.com, and we would be happy to answer you. Yeah. Thank you so much, and thank you for being with us. Thank you so much. Thank you, Shirish.
Thank you, Som.
Yeah.
Once again, it was good having this conversation with you.
Same here.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Thank you, everyone.